The High Court is this afternoon expected to give a ruling on the Huduma Namba. The court will give its decision in the case that was filed by the Nubian community and the Kenya Human Rights Commission, in which they challenged the constitutionality of the registration exercise, also known as the National Integrated Identity Management System. Silas Apollo is following up on the same. Silas, what is the mood around the courts and what else can we expect?
Yes, Gladys, it's indeed a big day for the Nubian community and the Kenya Human Rights Commission, who had filed a case to challenge the legality of the Huduma Namba, the registration exercise that had kicked off across the country, which the government said was supposed to consolidate all information for Kenyans in order to help in terms of registration. Part of the information that was supposed to be collected was for the national ID number, driving license, the NHIF, NSSF, and all the numbers, of course, other Kenyans are required to carry around whenever they're going to seek government services. And the argument by the government then was that consolidating all these data into one format, of course, which would then be consolidated into a card that would be a biometric card that would be issued to Kenya, was to help the government deliver services efficiently and in a more effective way to Kenyans. But the Nubian community and the Kenya Human Rights Commission had a different argument. Their argument before the court was that the exercise had been made mandatory to Kenyans, something that they say was unconstitutional. Of course, the other argument they had was that the manner in which the exercise was being carried was unconstitutional. But a bigger part of it was the argument on data protection. Remember, there's been a lot of concerns in terms of how is the government going to ensure that the data that they collect from Kenyans is secure and is not open to exploitation, is not open to abuse. And so earlier on, before the case was determined, the three judges gave a ruling. Of course, not basically a ruling, gave a direction to the government that they could go ahead and roll the exercise, the registration exercise of the Huduma Namba, but collection of the DNA samples, which the government had proposed they wanted to collect, should not be collected. The other direction that the court had given earlier was that the government was not supposed to collect information on the GPS location of Kenyans during the registration exercise. And so after that was done, the arguments and counter-arguments, the government came and argued that the exercise was not mandatory. Interior PS Karanja Kibicho was one of the witnesses who was called to stand to give his side of testimony, and he said that the registration had not been made mandatory. And you remember at one point him, of course, questioning the lawyers of the petitioners, that was Martha Karua, and telling Martha Karua that, you know, you're not registered as well and it's nothing really has happened to you. But then the question that the judges are supposed to, the direction they're supposed to give today, is the constitutionality of the registration exercise. Is it something that was supported by law? And were the arguments by the government valid? Or the arguments by the petitioners as well valid? They are justifiable grounds to argue that the protection of data in Kenya is something that is still shaky. Of course, we expect that to be happening today in the afternoon. The judgment was supposed to be done at about 3 a.m. about 9 a.m. in the morning, but we've been told that it's been pushed to 3 p.m. Today in the afternoon. So we'll be keeping tabs just to let you know what happens. But remember, the Huduma registration has been quite a thorny issue. It's an exercise. The other question that Kenyans have is why the cards have not been issued yet 9 months after the registration exercise ended. So those are some of the pending questions that we're supposed to be, of course, expecting answers from the judges today. But the government initially, that is PS Kibicho, argued that the reason why the data has been lying idle is because the government was awaiting the ruling of the court so as to determine whether they were going to continue with the exercise or not. So today the questions that the judges are going to deliberate on is the constitutionality of this whole issue altogether, and not just the constitutionality of it alone, but also in terms of the data protection. Is our data protected? Is it going to be open to violation and breach? Can someone be able to auction our data to the highest bid or something like that? So are we expecting all these issues to come up? Of course, the concerns by Kenyans, and we'll also be looking forward to the arguments, of course, the way forward from the government in terms of the issuance of the cards as they had promised. And it's now 9 months since the registration ended, but there's not much communication from the government. So we'll be keeping tabs, but for now, back to you in studio, Gladys.